Hi everyone, it's Kathleen. We are here today to do the final step in the needle book, and that is to create a buttonhole for the closure. I've created mine already. This is my needle book that I will be using for myself. It's made out of wool, and I like using wool because it does not fray, and it's 2 layers of wool sewn together. I've done this one already with a blanket stitch all the way around, and I have sewn an antique glass button on there for myself, and then, whoopsie, then I created a buttonhole, a hand-stitched buttonhole. So that's what I'm going to show you today, is how to create the hand-stitched little buttonhole. And I just insert my button through the hole, and voila, this is my needle book. I love how it turned out, and I'll do a very quick flip through at the end of both of these needle books. So this and this. So this is Carol's needle book. Carol asked if I was going to make one, if she could reserve one, so I will offer it to Carol first, and I will be making another one or so and putting them in my shop to see if anyone likes to purchase them. But today, if you want to make your own, I'll tell you how to make this one. So my fabric just happened to be the right length. So how do you determine what fabric you need? You have the thickness of your needle book. I doubled my, okay, well, if this is a single piece of my wool fabric, and I doubled it over, so it's, of course, 2 thicknesses like this, 2 thicknesses. And it feels nice and thick and sturdy as a closure. So my length, you just have to place a length of fabric. And how wide is this? Well, I just arbitrarily cut mine, I'm guessing at 2 inches, 2 inches wide. And when you place it down, we're going to wrap this around, and I'm going to cut it here. This needle book is empty, so when Carol puts her needles in, it'll fill up some. So I am going to take this one out, and I'm going to just see the length, I'm going to compare the two for length. Okay, these are the same length. Oh, my button, I moved over a little bit on that one. So that's why the buttonhole. I'm going to show you how to do this little buttonhole here. That's what this whole video is about, is to do this buttonhole. And at the end, a flip through. So let's put this on. And this button, okay, it's going to be cut in the center, of course, but where do I place it? I've already sewn this antique fuchsia button on here, and the middle is approximately right there. So I am going to just go in the center and make a little slit, and I'm just looking underneath here to see how wide, and you do not make it as long as your button, because it'll be way too loose. So we're just going to start with a small little hole in comparison to the button. So my hole is about in between 1/2 and 3/4 of the diameter of my button. So let's just see. Oh, look at that. It fits nice. I wouldn't want it any looser. So I'm just going to leave it like that. So now I'm going to show you how to sew it. So I've measured for my buttonhole. So let me back up. I blanket stitched all the way around. Because this was folded, I didn't blanket stitch on this side. I could have if I wanted to, but I just chose not to. And I used a double strand of this pearl cotton to sew on my button. Okay, so we know it fits, and move that over. So I take a length of pearl cotton, and I'm going to trim this end off just a bit. It's a little bit too long. So let's start with the right side. So this is my right side. Okay, and I am going to, my buttonhole stitch length is approximately 1/4 inch. So I'm going to start at about 1/4 inch. And I like using wool because, look at this, it doesn't fray. And yes, it's 2 thicknesses, and I'm going to sew them together. So you start off by going into the fabric from the front, into the back, and then coming through the corner of your buttonhole. Now I'm going to be making buttonhole stitches all the way up. So I'm going to start right at that slit. Right at the slit, I'm going to go across about 1/4 inch, and I'm going to go up. And remember, our working thread always goes underneath and our needle goes on top. And I want it to go snug right along the corner. So now I'm going to turn my work and keep my thread on top. And instead of just going 1/4 inch like I do around the edge here, I'm going to go a little bit closer because I want to fill up this area so it's nice and smooth. You can see there's, if this is 1/4 inch distance, there's 2 of them in there, so 1/8 inch distance. We just want lots of buttonhole stitches. We always keep the thread on top, and we're doing a buttonhole stitch. Into the fabric, needle over top of the working thread, on the edge of the fabric, because there'll be a line of thread across the top that we do. And I'm just going to keep working, and in, and this is just a buttonhole stitch straight across, hence the name buttonhole, because we're using it actually as a buttonhole. And this is a size 5 pearl cotton. It's a thicker thread. I like using a thicker thread like a size 5 because it adds stability. If I was using a size 8, it's thinner, I would have to put my stitches really close together. So this is the last one where I'm going to put a vertical stitch. And we're going to go right in the corner like that. Again, our thread is under the needle. And for the sake of cohesiveness, I'm going to go down 1/4 inch. Because there will be a thread there when I'm finished. I'm going to come up in the buttonhole. I don't want this space like that. You see how it's unfinished in here? I want to join it. So in order to join it, I am just using my eye of my needle so I don't pierce any of the fabric like that. I'm just going to go underneath that thread like that, and I'm going to be working the corner stitch, following my lines like this, and down, and always your needle is above your working thread. And I'm just going to pull it tight, keep my thread above, and I'm just going to keep going across like this. Always your needle above your working thread, and you pull it snugly. So snugly, yes, snugly is a word. so your thread lays across the top nicely. So I'm just going to get it out of the way and continue. It works up really quickly using this size 5 pearl cotton. I'm going to try some of those fancy threads. I don't know how long I have, like the length of the threads that I told you that I'd like to give away some of those threads because I won't be using them. I'm going to experiment with them in one of the upcoming videos. So am I at the end? Where's my button? Okay, I'm going to try this. I'm just worried that maybe it's going to be too small, so I might use an extra stitch. Okay, I'm going to do another stitch. So this is at the top. I'm going to go down one more stitch, making sure my needle is above my working thread, and down into that same spot. And I'm going to come up and let's see, I want to anchor it to this. Looks like I might have to insert one more stitch. So let's go. I'm putting my needle through the top so I can anchor it nice and tight. You saw how that, because I have a big space, a big gap in here, I want it to join. So that's why I'm going to go straight down. I anchored my thread at the top. I'm going to go down and I'm just going to make one more buttonhole stitch like that. Sometimes you have to improvise. And okay, I want to anchor it down at my corner here, but I don't like the thread coming. You can see how this left thread is on the top and this one's on the bottom. Let's see what happens when we move our needle up. I'm going to leave it up, so that's awesome. Let's go down. And we're going to tie it off. We're done. So let's tie that. Okay, let's do a double knot because this will be worked lots. Okay, so there we have it, our buttonhole. So you have those 2 anchor stitches on the side, and then you have the buttonhole stitch on either side of the buttonhole. So let's assemble this. Wow, we're only at 13, so that's took us very small amount of time. So this is the needle book, Carol. Now I'm going to do a flip through of my needle book and a flip through of Carol's needle book. Mine looks thicker because I put some needles in there already, and I really like how these two have turned out. I like this button. I am going to make another one, like I said, and have it put up in my Etsy shop. So let's have a look at mine really quickly. So this is my needle book that I'm finally have a needle book. So this closure is loose. I can keep this. I love how this needle book feels. I do have more scraps of my ribbon embroidery that is falling apart, so hence my scrappy slit and slot needle books. And let's look. I just didn't want to waste that pearl cotton, so I just started it at the back and made some loose French knots on there. So my needle book, my long Milner's needles that I use all the time in the front. So these are the little patchwork bits to my scrappy needle book, my chenille needles, my embroidery needles, that's the first signature of the front cover and the second signature of the back cover. And I don't have a lot of needles that I switch between, so I have packages and packages of needles in a box, but if I don't use them all the time, I'm not going to fill them up in here just yet. As I use them, I'll put them in here. And these are very, very, very long needles that I use for drizzle stitches, very long drizzle stitches, and other fancy embroidery stitches. They're going to stay in the back. And when I actually close this up, I don't have any sort of a tie here. I don't know whether I'm going to keep this enclosed in here. Maybe not, because I would probably poke myself, because if I'm clumsy, bottom line is, so maybe I'm not going to do that. So here we are. That's my needle book. Love how that turned out. And the next one, this is Carol's needle book. They look a little different. Same closure, and it's a separate closure. I love this encrusted cover. That's the front, and this is the back. Since our last video, I added some of the feather stitch and just a couple of lines, just so it blends in with the front cover. So this is the needle book. Same number of pages. We have a front cover. And this front cover is just, it's one piece of wool with the other piece of wool appliqued on here. Then we have the little patchwork pieces with my signature wonky cross stitches and my loose French knots, groups of 3. And if I have a grouping of large, medium, small, if it ends at the bottom, the next one will end at the top. And it's variegated wools throughout, ending at the bottom. This is the middle page that has that combination stitch. Love making combination stitches. There is a video on my YouTube channel for this. I even like how it looks on the back. And some more scrappy patches. And the lengths that I tried to be as neat as possible, but they do have the knots. It's a handmade journal. That's just the way it is. Another patchwork. And the back. It feels really nice in your hand. Very, very nice. It's not itchy. Years ago, when they had wool fabric, just of where the sheep would live, they would have the different dried leaves and twigs and grasses that would kind of poke in. That's what's itchy in the wool. But nowadays, it's processed a little bit better or differently. So there we go. So I will put this in my shop, reserved for Carol, and I will work on another one and have it in my shop as well. I don't know if people are interested in these or not, but I'll give it a try. If not, if no one buys it, then I will just eventually gift it to someone. There we go. Thank you everyone for watching. Bye for now.